Death is something everyone thinks about, but no one wants to experience it. It's a frightening thought, the end of everything we know. Yet heaven? That's different. Everyone wants to go to heaven, a place where tears are wiped away, where there's no more pain or sorrow. For John, heaven wasn't just a distant dream. It was his goal, his reason for going to church every Sunday. John was a simple man with a joyful heart. He was known for his humor and the way he could lighten the mood, even in serious situations. His friends often teased him about his devotion to church. "John, are you afraid God will forget your name?" someone asked once. John laughed and replied, "I'm just keeping my spot on the guest list. Heaven is by invitation only." One quiet afternoon, John sat in his old wooden chair by the window. It was his favorite place to rest and watch life pass by. The rustling trees, children playing, and the occasional bird flying by. But that day, something felt different. A strange weakness washed over him, not like the tiredness from a long day, but a heaviness deep in his soul. As he sat there, he heard a voice, not loud but unmistakable, speaking directly to his heart. "John," the voice said, "the angels are coming for your spirit. Get prepared." John froze. He looked around the room, his heart racing. Was someone playing a prank on him? The house was silent, except for the ticking of the clock. He rubbed his eyes and muttered to himself, "Prepare? I've been going to church all my life. Should I leave a note for the angels or what?" He tried to laugh it off, but the words wouldn't leave his mind. Fear began to creep in, but John remembered the words he often heard in church. "God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." 2 Timothy 1:7. He sat back in his chair trying to calm his thoughts. If the voice was real, what did prepared mean? Was his time really up? John decided to pray. Kneeling beside his bed, he whispered, "Lord, I don't know what's happening, but I trust you. If this is my time, help me go with peace. Forgive me for my mistakes and show me what to do." As he prayed, a wave of calmness swept over him. He remembered another verse. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11. The next morning, John woke up feeling surprisingly stronger. The weakness had passed, but the voice lingered in his mind. Instead of fear, he felt a strange sense of purpose. He thought to himself, maybe God isn't calling me to die, but to live differently. He decided to visit Sarah, a widow who lived alone down the road. She was a kind woman, but often kept to herself. John had meant to check on her for months, but always got too busy. When he arrived, Sarah's face lit up with joy. "John, I've been so lonely," she said. "I prayed for someone to come visit, and here you are." John felt a lump in his throat. He spent the day with her, sharing stories, laughter, and even prayer. As he walked back home, he realized something. Getting prepared isn't just about going to church. It's about living a life that pleases God, helping others, loving your neighbor, and spreading hope. That evening, John invited a few friends and neighbors to sit with him under the stars. He shared his experience and the thoughts it stirred in his heart. "Life is short," he told them. "We don't know when our time will come, but we can choose how we live now. Love God, love others, and trust Him. That's how we prepare." He encouraged them with Psalm 23, 1-3. "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul." His friends laughed and nodded. "John, you've always been full of surprises. Now you're preaching to us?" someone teased. John laughed too and replied, "Well, someone has to remind you about heaven's guest list." The group prayed together, their hearts lighter than when they arrived. As John sat quietly in his chair, he began to ask himself questions that stirred his heart deeply. Am I truly ready to meet God? Have I lived a life pleasing to Him? Is there someone I've hurt and not asked for forgiveness? Are there things I should have done but didn't? These thoughts weighed heavily on his mind as he reflected on his life and prepared for what he believed was God's call. John knelt beside his bed and prayed earnestly, "Lord, search my heart and show me anything I have done wrong. Remind me of anyone I may have wronged, so I can make things right before I leave this earth. I want to be at peace with everyone and with you." He recalled the scripture, "If you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar. First go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift." Matthew 5:23-24. As he prayed, faces began to flash in his mind. He thought of his neighbor Samuel, whom he once argued with over a misunderstanding about property boundaries. He hadn't spoken to Samuel since that day. He also remembered a boy at church he had scolded harshly for playing during a service. John realized there were moments when his words might have caused pain without him realizing it. "Lord, forgive me for being impatient and unkind. Help me to make things right," he whispered. John meditated on scriptures that brought him peace and strength. "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." Psalm 139:23-24. These words became his prayer as he reflected on his life. He also found comfort in Psalm 51, verse 10. "Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me." These verses reminded him that God's mercy was always available to those who sought Him with sincerity. John spent the following days visiting those he had thought about during his prayer. He apologized to Samuel and had a heartfelt conversation with the boy at church, assuring him he didn't mean to discourage him. Each interaction brought him a sense of peace and lightened the weight on his heart. Through prayer and reconciliation, John prepared his soul, living out the words of Romans 12:18. "If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." John didn't know how much time he had left, but he knew one thing. He was ready, not just for heaven, but for every moment God had planned for him on earth. John's story reminds us of a simple but powerful truth. Preparing for heaven isn't just about what happens after we die. It's about how we live today. As believers, we are called to love God, serve others, and trust Him in every season of life. The voice John heard may not be something we all experience, but God speaks to us in many ways, through His Word, through prayer, and through the people around us. Are we listening? This story challenges us to examine our lives. Are we living with purpose? Are we sharing God's love with others? Are we trusting His plans, even when we don't understand them? As believers, we are reminded by Matthew 25:23. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Let us strive to live in such a way that when our time comes, we too will hear these words. May John's story inspire us to live each day with faith, love, and hope, knowing that God's plans for us are always good.